Shalom, Kol Halal, Yahweh Bahasham, Yahushai Bahasham, Rakah HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles, double honors to the elder bishops, salutations to all my fellow laborers, doing this work in truth and sincerity, risking their lives and their freedom to do so. Now more so than ever, the would-be judges, the 144,000, and the scattered elect that are scattered around the four corners of the earth, that be like unto the speckled bird, the Israelite foreigners, among the heathen nations, that look like those heathen nations. All right, this is not a black thing. And to the few Akwaf that are listening and learning, to you I say Shalom. This is your brother Malcolm from the branch of the Great Millstone here in Chicago, coming at you another lesson in truth. On the last video, I believe that I said that the Edomites were when the transformation from the pagan Roman Empire to the Holy Roman Empire was about 296. That was a mistake. It was around 96 AD. All right, it's around 96 AD was the last so-called white person was ruling Rome, and Jacob went on to rule Europe for the next 1,500. The next 1,000 years or so, actually. All right, so it wasn't literally until the 1500s where Esau came fully back into power or back into power at the fall of Granada, Spain, which is around the end of the 14th century, 1492, when Cristobal Colon sailed. All right, and we left off. This guy was talking about Shakespeare, so I'm going to read this because he refers to Shakespeare as an anti-Semitic. You can't be anti what you are. Shakespeare was an Israelite, was a Jew. Shakespeare is described as a Judean, as a tall, dark Judean. All right, and once again, it also makes sense because when we looked at Othello, the Moor of Venice, doing this, and you see, you can just look at how racist and hateful the Israelis imposters are today with the Arabs and with Negroes and anyone who's not so-called white, and especially anyone who isn't so-called Jewish. There is no way that any so-called white people that were in power in the 1500s would make a play about a black man having sexual relations with a white Christian woman. All right, once again, let's look at that. Let's look at the receipts, and then I'm gonna bring out a scripture. All right, here we are back in the complete works of Shakespeare. All right, I'm holding that book in my hand, the complete works of Shakespeare, and I'm in the. Here we go. Let's go to the beginning of it though, because you can see the whole title. Because right after Hamlet of Denmark, all right, and remember the letter from 1751 when Ben Franklin wrote about the blackness or the darkness, the swarthiness of the people of Eurasia. All right. So Othello the Moor, all right, of Venice, so-called black man, a moreno, all right? How the Mexicans say today, morenos, all right? So there's no way that, a white man in power would write a story about a Moor having sexual relations with a so-called white woman, because they give the fallacy, the fraud, the fraudulent belief. They talk about this time period as if the Christians who were Israelites were so-called white. All right, King Edward and all, and Harold and all, none of those people, and they weren't against so-called real Israelites, Jews, as you would say, because they were that, and they knew who they were. They knew they were the seed line of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They were very well aware of that. All right, this whole Jewishness is, it's a lot of confusion. Remember, Jewish is the hijack for the word Jew or Judea, and Jewish is also used to hijack the Israelites, and it's a replacement theory. Okay, but this is Deuteronomy 33 and 29, and it reads, Happy art thou, O Israel, who is like unto thee, O people saved by Yahweh, the shield of thy help, and who is the sword of thy excellency. And thy enemies shall be found liars unto thee, and thou shalt tread upon their high places. So let's listen to one of these members of the crafty council lie about Shakespeare. It makes no sense when you see the receipts and then you hear how they speak about history. So here we go.
Writes his plays during this time, but the stereotype, the negative, evil stereotype remains in the psyche of Europe. Go read Shakespeare's plays. Go read how he writes about Shylock the Jew. This is Shakespeare, not me. Shakespeare is an anti-Semite in every sense of the term. The stereotypes, the negativity, and ironically, he's never interacted with the Jewish person because they're...
And see, that's a complete and total lie. Shakespeare was a Judean. All right. Once again, he was described himself as tall and dark. He didn't like his dark skin. He didn't like being called a black Jew boy. So how is it the same way that King Charles II was called black boy? All right. I don't know of any so-called white people that refer to themselves as black boy. That's a common nickname that so-called black people have for very dark chocolate, people of their own kind. All right, that's a term that they have for their own. All right, that's not common.
There are no Jews in England when Shakespeare's writing because of the decree. Only in 1680 or something, the king relents and allows them back in. And that is why, by the way, to this day in England, the Jewish population is very small compared to other places in Europe because for 4 centuries, they were banned. And
So, once again, this portion of the history that this guy is given is extremely fraudulent. All right, because King James and his whole line knew that they were Israelite. That's why King James sought to unite, the Scots, the Irish, and the Brits, because they were all Israelites. When you go to the book, The Negro Question, all right, that's this book right here, all right, that I'm holding in my hand. Okay, I didn't put it up on the screen, and I meant to. All right. I'm going to read some inserts from page 4 and 5, and I've read this so many times. All right. Actually, I'm going to start at page 6, and this is for Professor Boyd Dawkins. I used to have this written, this whole thing right here. I used to have this written in one of my first Bibles when I woke up to the truth, just so I could read it. But this is Professor Boyd Dawkins, Professor of Geology, Manchester University, London, 1879, and this is from his book, Our Remote Ancestry, pages 95 through 106. So let me put that up so anyone can screenshot it. Remember, this is page 6 in the Negro Question. All right. And it reads, the origin of the Britain, France, Spain, and England. The original people of Britain, France, Spain, and England were short black men about 5 foot 6 inches in height. And they were in England when our forefathers, white English, invaded the land in 449 AD. Our fathers were warlike people who in 607 AD pushed the Basque west into Wales, Cumberland, Westmore, Highlands, Scotland, and Devon. Black people boasted that they were citizens of the Roman Empire. These were the Israelite foreigners. The Gentiles, the Israelite foreigners, all right, who came from the Roman Empire, knowing that they were Hebrew. And it says the Welsh and ancient Britons were in possession before the Romans ever came. The Black Basque, and what he's saying about this, about black people being in control of those places, he's really referring to the dark people who were already in Western Asia that they fraudulently call Europe. I've already provided that receipt, that evidence, that Europe and Asia is one place. Eurasia, as they started calling it, that whole Europe thing really that word wasn't used until Edom, the so-called white man, came into power during the Renaissance. That's when that word Europe begins to be used, because they were using the fraudulent doctrine of color to identify people. And so they place pale people from Europe, which is a complete and total lie, all right? But it says these black bars, Britain have brought the knowledge of iron and bronze with them. The iron and bronze technology will be proven perfectly when I show you German tapestry. Now remember, there's some German tapestry. Let's see if I have that receipt in my that shows you so-called white men, the wildlings, coming out of the wood attacking a castle full of black people in the 1500s in Germany. Please explain why there were black people living in Germany wearing armor and with garments underneath them with fringes of blue and borders of blue on the bottom. These people knew that they were Israelites, man. Okay? And I'm going to see if I have that in my evidence. I know I have it. It's a matter of me finding it where it is. If I have the particular image that I'm talking about, which can still be Googled. You can still find that image. Imagine they're going to make it disappear. And unfortunately, I don't have that tapestry of that particular image of those Moors in their armor defending the castle from wild white men and coming out of the woods with sticks, with spears, spears that they carved from wood without metal on them, just sharpened sticks. But here, what I will show you is some images from the Dark Ages, since I just happen to have it here. Let's turn it sideways so it's bigger. All right. They were found in different parts of Europe. Okay. Matter of fact, we'll turn it this way. Let's provide. Okay. These are the things that they hid, that they kept away from the general public. Bristol Psaltery. Oh, this is 11th century. So we're coming out of the Dark Ages into medieval times. So like I said, prior to the so-called white man coming into rulership during the Renaissance, these were all the imagery that you saw of the Israelites, of the Christians, of the Jews. And all of a sudden it changed. Okay? All of a sudden it changed. And why? Because of them trying to hide the truth. This right here is from the book Sex and Race. This book here. And this is page 86 in the book Sex and Race. See, I have it. That's what you're looking at on the screen there. And this is from page 86, going back to what I opened with about the last emperors. All right, this was Jake was just like on. Hold on, let me pop out another book. I got so many books and things in front of me. So Salakia, this is the cover of Ancient and Modern Britons. You can clearly see the knight and his and his Edomite bride. Okay. So, and they were making children. Jake was in rulership, and he was popping all the heathen women, and you had your little red bones and whatever you would call it. But then you had these Negroes sitting on the thrones, and coming into the 2nd, 3rd, 4th century, all the way up until the fall of Granada, Spain, to the from when it went from the pagan Roman Empire to the Holy Roman Empire. Okay. But it says Negroes in ancient Rome and Carthage. Okay. The earliest known natives of Italy were Negroes, it was said, thus making the base of the Latin race Negroid. You hear this? Dr. Wilson, basing his observation on the earliest Etruscan pottery, refers to well-known examples of Etruscan vases molded in forms of Negroes, heads of Greeks, pottery painted the same characteristics, feature, and woolly hair. Specimens both are preserved among the collection of British museums and furnish interesting evidence alike. all right, of the permanency of Negro type and familiarity both of the Greek and Etruscan artists with African features long prior to the Christian era. So basically, you know, what he's admitting to, and what he doesn't understand, is that the people in Europe or that part of Asia were the sons of Japhet. All right, they were Japhites. They were not so-called Africans. They weren't Africans at all. And I don't know if sometimes I think that J.A. Rogers knew that we were the Hebrews, that we were the Israelites, but he was making all these books in the 1800s, and and I mean, he was, early 1800s, late 1800s, early 1900s, and he was trying to how can I say, get around the Edomite supremacy, So sometimes I think when I just read, it seems to me that he really knew a certain amount of truth about the Israelites, but just to get his books published, he held back some information. That's just my personal opinion on it. All right. But there's clearly the whole world was melanated. All right. The only people that were walking around pale were the Edomites, and who are Semitic people, or Shemitic. There's really no such thing as Semitic. That's a word that they made up so that they can control the narrative, keep the narrative, the way that it is. All right. The man's name was Shem. So you won't find Sem in the Bible at all. All right. So I'm gonna read this last portion, read a couple more scriptures, and then we'll move on to the part 2 and 3. Just wanted to do this real quick and make that adjustment about the time of rulership, because I said that wrong in the first video. But it says, Rome, like Egypt and Greece, had no distinctions. Her extensive literature, this is the same page, page 86, in Sex and Race by J.A. Rogers. All right, this is a really good book to get. All right, and you can still get this book, and it's not going to cost you. I think I paid maybe $15, $20 for this book. Probably about 14 years ago. So you can 14 or 15 years ago, you can still get this book. Rome, like Egypt and Greece, had no color distinction. And I always tell you that Rome was like being in New York or Chicago today. Everyone was there, and you weren't identified by color back then. That's a new thing. They wanted to know who your father was, because they understood, regardless of what your exterior looked like, they wanted to know what sperm line, what seed line you came from. Okay, so it wasn't about color back then. All right, that's the ignorance that moves through the earth now. But it says here, extensive literature reveals none. Rome's attempt at color line begins with Mussolini thousands of years later. You hear that? People of all races and colors were brought to the Moors, Greeks, Parthians, Gauls, Celts, Belgians, Saxons, Britons, thrown into the world, nigger, or they're saying Niger. All right. Like Ethiop, it crept into Rome language, having the Nigerian means the people of the river of Niger, or Nile, or the river of Niger. All right, if you're going to pronounce it how it actually should be said. All right. It says probably means great or girl in African, or for river. At first, Niger had been nothing more, had nothing more to do with the black than the waters of the river itself. Alter was the Latin for blacks. I'm trying to read through the camera, so Salakia. It says, some of the most illustrious Romans bore the surname nigger or Niger or Negro, as Persinius Niger, Persinius Niger. Persinius Niger, was the enemy of what's his name? Septimius Severus. They were fighting for rulership. All right, Septimius Severus conquered and ended up killing Persinius Niger or Persinius Niger. however you want to pronounce it. Remember, the word nigger back then was nothing more than a description. It did not have the negative connotation that it has today. All right. One of their greatest emperors, another Niger, was counselor to royal family and accompanied by Octavia, sister of Caesar Augustus, to Greece when she went to try to win back her husband Mark Antony from Cleopatra. A later Niger was Henry the Third, emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, 1017 to 1056 AD. All right, so there's a lot of information, and once again, here are images from, all right, race mixing in Rome, of course. A young Roman emperor, Honorius, after John Paul Laurens, distinguished French painter. All right, and that was 1880 when this was painted. It looks like that's the date at the bottom of it. So there you go, man. Looks like one of my friends that grew up with me looked like one of his sons. But so there we go, man. So we're gonna, play more of this video later on in the next part. This will be part 2, and we'll be continuing on until I'm through this video. And it's hard to listen because, like I said, this guy's mixing truth with lies. He's giving you real history, but what he's not giving you is the actual truth about what people were in rulership and what people were on the bottom, because Esau, Edom was basically serfs and nobodies at that time. All right, they were on their belly. They had went, they were living in caves, and that sort of thing. All right, so with that, I'm gonna give all praises, all honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem. Well, you know what? Let me read the scripture before I close, because I was really digging into the history. Let me bring out one more scripture. This is Psalms 85:11, since that was the subject matter, was history, and all the relics that are left behind that we can use in unison with the Holy Scriptures just to prove points. But this is Psalms 85:11, and it said, "Truth shall spring out of the earth, and righteousness shall look down from heaven." All right. So with that, all praises, glory, and honor be unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakah HaKodash, Kwam Yasharala, Abad Babal. See you in the next lesson.